At my housewarming party, my mom waved the deed and said, "Eric needs this more than you do. What do you have just yourself?" stealing the house I bought with my life savings. I pulled out my phone and started recording everything, because what they didn't realize was that I wasn't just Mia Reynolds, exhausted nurse. I was Mia Reynolds, forensic financial analyst with a $127,000 annual salary, professional connections they couldn't imagine, and a very specific skill set for dismantling financial fraud. The words hit me like a physical blow as I stood in the kitchen of what was supposed to be my investment property. My stepbrother Eric lounged against the granite countertop I'd personally selected, his wife Jessica beside him, both of them radiating the smugness of people who thought they'd just pulled off the perfect heist. My stepdad George avoided eye contact entirely, while extended family members shifted uncomfortably, suddenly finding their drinks fascinating. But here's what they didn't know about quiet, accommodating Mia. For the past 3 years, I hadn't just been working double shifts at Memorial Hospital. I'd been moonlighting as a forensic financial analyst for Sterling & Associates, specializing in asset recovery and financial fraud investigation. My weekend overtime had actually been building federal cases against embezzlers, money launderers, and sophisticated financial criminals. I'd helped recover $12.7 million in stolen assets over the past 18 months alone. As Eric continued his victory speech about finally getting the stable home our baby deserves, I methodically activated the recording app on my phone. Not the basic voice recorder that most people use, but a professional-grade application that creates legally admissible audio with timestamp verification and cloud backup integration. The same app I used when documenting financial crimes for federal prosecutors. "This isn't right," I managed to say, my voice trembling with controlled rage rather than despair. That money was everything I had. We had a written agreement. My mom rolled her eyes with practiced dismissal. "Oh, stop being so dramatic. You're a nurse. You'll save it up again. Eric needs stability for his family. It's not like you have anyone depending on you." That's when my analytical mind shifted into the same mode I used when unraveling million-dollar fraud schemes. I started cataloging everything in real time. The casual admission of breach of contract, the dismissive attitude toward my financial sacrifice, most importantly, the complete ignorance of who they were actually dealing with. My best friend Rachel, who knew exactly what my side work involved, caught my eye from across the room. She'd been watching this unfold with the horror of someone who understood the magnitude of what my family had just attempted. Rachel worked as a paralegal at Brennan & Associates, one of the city's most aggressive litigation firms. She'd seen me testify in federal court, watched me dismantle financial criminals with the same methodical precision I was now applying to my own family. I excused myself to the bathroom and immediately sent a secure message to my contact at Sterling & Associates. "Marcus, emergency consultation needed. Family attempted to steal $175,000 through fraudulent deed transfer. Need full forensic financial investigation by Monday." His response came within 90 seconds. "Jesus, Mia, send me everything you have. This sounds like a slam-dunk fraud case." When I returned to the party, Eric was giving everyone a tour of his new home, pointing out features and discussing renovation plans with the casual entitlement of someone who thought he'd just won the lottery. My Aunt Linda, the only family member who'd ever truly supported me, stood in the corner looking absolutely disgusted. "Mia, honey," she whispered when I approached, "this isn't legal. You can't just transfer property without the owner's consent. I used to work in real estate, and something's very wrong here." I nodded, my mind already 3 steps ahead. "Linda, I need you to do something for me. Can you keep everyone distracted while I gather some documentation? Just for about 10 minutes. While Linda engaged Eric in conversation about his grand renovation plans, I slipped into the kitchen where Mom always kept important papers. The folder with our original agreement was exactly where I expected to find it, But as I photographed each page with my phone, I discovered something that made my blood run cold. There was a letter from their attorney, dated just 2 weeks ago, explicitly warning them that transferring the deed without my written consent would constitute fraud. The lawyer had outlined the specific criminal charges they could face: grand theft, conspiracy to commit fraud, and potentially federal wire fraud if any electronic banking had been involved in the scheme. They'd known it was illegal and done it anyway, betting that I was too accommodating, too family-oriented, too financially devastated to fight back effectively. That's when I realized this wasn't just theft. This was a calculated betrayal based on their fundamental misunderstanding of who I'd become over the past 3 years. They still saw me as the broke nursing student who used to beg for gas money. They had no idea they'd just declared war on someone who'd helped send 12 people to federal prison for financial crimes. I sent copies of everything to Marcus, then texted another crucial contact, Jennifer Hayes, the deputy district attorney who'd worked with me on 3 major fraud cases. Jennifer owed me significant favors. My testimony had helped her secure convictions that made her career. Her response was immediate and intense. "Mia, this is textbook fraud. I can have warrants ready by Tuesday if you want to press charges." The beauty of having spent 3 years in financial crime investigation was that I understood exactly how to document everything properly. I had admissible audio recordings, photographic evidence of the original agreement, proof they'd received legal warnings about the illegality of their actions, and a paper trail showing the systematic deception. But most importantly, I had something they couldn't have anticipated: professional documentation of my own financial competence, bank records showing my $127,000 salary, tax returns proving my legitimate income sources, and employment verification from both Memorial Hospital and Sterling and Associates. When their lawyer tried to argue that I was financially irresponsible or couldn't afford the house, I had comprehensive proof of my professional stability. As the party wound down and guests began leaving with awkward expressions, Eric made one final mistake that ensured I'd pursue criminal charges. He walked over to me with his usual condescending smirk and said, "Look, Mia, I know you're upset, but this is what's best for everyone. Jessica and I will take good care of the place. Maybe we'll even let you visit sometimes." I smiled calmly and replied, "Eric, I think you're going to be very surprised by how this plays out." He laughed and walked away, dismissing me one final time. Rachel approached as I gathered my things. "What's the plan?" she asked quietly. "Full legal warfare," I replied. "They have no idea what they've just done to themselves." That night, I called Marcus for a detailed strategy session. As Sterling and Associates' lead forensic accountant, Marcus had handled cases involving stolen assets worth hundreds of millions. He reviewed my documentation with professional appreciation. "Mia, this is actually worse than simple theft," he said. "They've created a paper trail showing premeditated fraud. That lawyer's warning letter proves they knew it was illegal. The casual way they dismissed your financial contribution shows pattern of financial abuse. And the deed transfer without your signature, that's forgery. We're looking at multiple felonies here." I took detailed notes as Marcus outlined our strategy. First, emergency injunction to prevent any modifications to the property. Second, full forensic financial investigation to determine if they'd committed additional crimes during the deed transfer process. Third, criminal referral to the DA's office for prosecution. Fourth, civil lawsuit for damages, including legal fees, emotional distress, and punitive damages. "But here's the beautiful part," Marcus continued. "Your professional background makes you the perfect victim from a prosecutor's perspective. You're a healthcare worker and financial crime analyst with spotless records, solid income, and extensive community ties. They're unemployed con artists with a history of failed business ventures. Any jury will side with you immediately." Monday morning, I sat in Jennifer Hayes' office as she reviewed the evidence. Jennifer was a sharp prosecutor who'd built her career on high-profile financial crime cases. She'd seen every variation of family financial abuse, but my case impressed her with its clear-cut legal violations. "Mia, they've handed us a gift," she said. "Everything's documented. We have premeditation, we have knowledge of illegality, we have forgery, and we have a victim with impeccable credibility. I can get indictments within the week." While Jennifer prepared criminal charges, Marcus initiated the civil proceedings. The emergency injunction was granted immediately, freezing any changes to the property and requiring Eric to vacate within 72 hours. The forensic financial investigation revealed additional crimes. They'd opened credit accounts using the fraudulent deed as collateral, borrowed money against property they'd illegally obtained, and lied on loan applications about their income sources. Eric's first indication that his perfect crime had backfired came Tuesday afternoon when sheriff's deputies served him with papers at his actual residence. According to my sources, he initially laughed and said there must be some mistake. The deputies corrected his misunderstanding by explaining that he had 48 hours to remove all personal belongings from my property before facing criminal trespass charges. My mom called me 17 times that evening. I let every call go to voicemail, then listened to the progression from confident dismissal to growing panic. The final message was her crying and begging me to work this out as a family, because Eric can't afford legal problems right now. Wednesday morning brought the criminal charges. Eric was arrested at the electronics store where he'd finally gotten his first legitimate job in years. The charges were impressive: grand theft, conspiracy to commit fraud, forgery, and fraudulent use of identifying information. Mom and George were charged as co-conspirators. The local news covered it as family financial fraud ring busted by victim's investigation. But the story got better. During the asset investigation, Marcus discovered that Eric had been running additional scams. The baby on the way that made him so deserving of my house. Jessica wasn't pregnant. She also wasn't his wife. They'd never legally married, just told everyone they had. The entire sob story about needing stability for his growing family was fabricated to manipulate sympathy. When Jessica discovered that Eric had been using her name on fraudulent documents related to the stolen house, she cooperated fully with prosecutors. Her testimony revealed that Eric had planned to rent out rooms in my house to generate income while continuing to live in their original apartment. He'd essentially planned to become my landlord while I paid for everything. The preliminary hearing was a prosecutor's dream. I testified about my professional background, my financial contribution, and the systematic deception involved in the theft. The defense attorney tried to portray me as a vindictive family member blowing up a simple misunderstanding, but my documentation and professional credibility made their case hopeless. Eric's lawyer made the mistake of suggesting I was financially unstable and couldn't really afford the house anyway. I smiled and handed over my employment verification showing my $127,000 hospital salary, plus my $78,000 annual income from forensic accounting work. The judge actually raised his eyebrows when he saw my professional qualifications. "Your Honor," I said calmly, "I've testified in federal court on financial fraud cases. I understand exactly what constitutes theft, and I document everything professionally. This isn't confusion or family disagreement. This is systematic financial crime." The judge agreed. Eric was denied bail reduction and scheduled for trial in 60 days. Mom and George pled guilty to lesser charges in exchange for cooperation and received probation plus full restitution. Jessica, who'd been used as much as I had, received immunity for her testimony. But the criminal case was just the beginning. Marcus filed a comprehensive civil lawsuit seeking treble damages, attorney fees, and punitive awards. Since they'd used my stolen house as collateral for additional loans, the financial exposure kept growing. Eric faced personal liability for approximately $340,000 in total damages. The house was officially returned to me, but I had one final surprise that nobody saw coming. I'd already accepted an offer from a developer who wanted to convert the property into luxury condominiums. The sale price was 30% above what I'd originally paid, and the deal included a clause allowing me to purchase one of the finished units at a significant discount. When my family found out about the sale, the phone started ringing again. This time, the messages were angry rather than pleading. Eric left a furious voicemail accusing me of destroying the family over money. Mom cried about how I was being cruel and vindictive. George sent a text saying I'd won and asking if I was satisfied. I was satisfied, not because I enjoyed their suffering, but because they'd finally learned a lesson about underestimating people. They'd looked at quiet, accommodating Mia and seen someone they could manipulate without consequences. Instead, they'd discovered that quiet, accommodating Mia was also professionally competent, financially secure, and connected to people who could make their lives very difficult when they crossed certain lines. The settlement money, combined with the profit from selling the house, allowed me to purchase my dream cottage with a garden and still maintain a healthy investment portfolio. I'd turned their attempted theft into a significant financial gain while ensuring they faced appropriate consequences for their crimes. 6 months later, my life had transformed completely. The cottage was everything I'd wanted, peaceful, private, and entirely mine. My garden flourished that summer, producing enough vegetables to share with neighbors and donate to local food banks. The consulting work with Sterling and Associates had expanded into a full partnership opportunity, and my reputation in forensic financial analysis had grown substantially after the successful prosecution of my own family's crimes. Eric served 9 months in county jail and emerged to find his credit destroyed, his employment prospects limited by his felony conviction, and his relationship with Jessica permanently ended. He moved back in with Mom and George, who'd lost their own home due to legal fees and restitution payments. The three of them now shared a small apartment and worked retail jobs to pay off their debts to me. The most satisfying part wasn't their downfall, but my growth. I'd learned to value myself professionally and personally. Young nurses at the hospital sought my advice about standing up for themselves. Colleagues respected my analytical approach to problems. I started teaching workshops on financial fraud prevention, using my own case as an example of how determination and professional competence could overcome family manipulation. My Aunt Linda visited regularly, always marveling at how the garden thrived. "You know," she said during one visit, "your mother used to make fun of your gardening obsession. She called it a waste of time and money." I smiled, watching butterflies dance among my tomato plants. She was wrong about a lot of things, but that's not my problem to solve anymore. The cottage garden became a metaphor for my new life. I'd cleared out the weeds of toxic relationships and planted something beautiful in their place. Every flower that bloomed, every vegetable that grew, every peaceful evening on my porch reminded me that I'd chosen growth over bitterness, boundaries over accommodation, and self-respect over family obligation. A year later, I hosted a small housewarming party at the cottage. The guest list included Rachel, Linda, colleagues from both jobs, and new friends from the book club I'd joined. As we sat on the deck watching fireflies dance in my garden, someone asked if I ever regretted pursuing legal action against my family. I considered the question seriously. The family I'd lost had never really valued me anyway. The money they'd stolen was just money. But what I'd gained by standing up for myself was priceless. Self-respect, professional growth, financial security, and relationships based on mutual respect rather than obligation. "No," I replied. "I regret not doing it sooner. They counted on me being too nice to fight back, too family-oriented to pursue justice, too accommodating to demand respect. They were wrong about all of it." Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about getting better. Every success I achieved, every boundary I maintained, every peaceful moment in my garden was proof that I'd made the right choice. They'd wanted to steal my house, but instead they'd given me something much more valuable, the knowledge that I was strong enough to protect myself and demand the respect I deserved. My phone still occasionally lit up with messages from family members, usually when they needed money or wanted to test whether my boundaries had softened. Each time I responded with the same calm professionalism I'd bring to any other situation. "I'm not in a position to help with that." The phrase had become my shield, protecting the life I'd built from the people who'd tried to tear it down. The cottage garden was thriving again this spring, with new additions every season. Like my life, it kept growing, kept getting more beautiful, and kept proving that sometimes the best thing you can do for toxic people is to stop enabling them and start thriving without them.